So the time of the Buddha, and there are a number of monks who are well known for their abilities to teach, to transmit the Buddha's teachings. And if you read the suttas, which is the collection of discourses in the Tipitaka, you'll find that they are not all attributed to the Buddha himself. There are a number of discourses that were given by Venerable Sariputta, the disciple foremost in wisdom. There are suttas, discourses delivered by Venerable Mahamoggallana, who was the other chief disciple and foremost in psychic powers, but also a number from other enlightened disciples, including one brilliant and very profound discourse in the Majjhima Nikaya delivered by Khemya, one of the great Arahant nuns or bhikkhunis in the Buddha's time. And the monks who of all the monks who were praised by the Buddha and given this title of foremost in different areas of monastic life and spiritual development. There's one monk who was foremost in summarizing the teachings of the Buddha, and another one was foremost in being able to expand at length upon short, pithy teachings of the Buddha. So this ability to listen well and to be able to expand upon abbreviated points and to summarize points made at length is skills that were recognized by Buddha himself and things that we still develop to this day. So anyway, these are brief points that I will expand upon. I keep practicing based on my understanding about sati and meditation. Is there any technique or guideline that I could check with myself whether I'm heading in the right direction? Yes, there are a number of guidelines and observations that you can make. One of the first is that as before we start practicing, I think we can acknowledge, we can accept that the things that make us suffer, upset us in life, far exceed the things that make us happy. And that when we do experience some happiness in life, it's very difficult to sustain it. It's very fragile and very easily undermined. So, in the words of one the great modern teacher is saying, the normal mental life, the more of people, is one in which we find it very easy to suffer and rather difficult to be happy. Or the things that make us suffer far exceed the things that give us pleasure and happiness. So one of the guidelines for Buddhist practice is that you should observe that things that make you suffer decrease, have decreased, and the things that make you happy have increased. So that's one thing to look at. So, yeah, for instance, you might have some kind of encounter, painful encounter with somebody who speaks coarsely or accuses you of something you haven't done and so on. And you might think, oh, a year ago or 3 years ago, if that had happened, I would have fallen to pieces. I would have been, a mess for days. And now, I feel it, but not so badly, just a few hours and I feel almost back to normal again. So this kind of observation that things that used to hurt us a lot, it's not that they don't hurt us anymore, but it doesn't go so deep. And we have the resources to be able to deal with these kinds of unwanted, unpleasant experiences. And then as our mind becomes clearer, it's like, you had say the front mirror, the windscreen of your car was very dirty, and then one day you clean the windscreen, and your vision is much clearer and stronger, and particularly you become sensitive to goodness in a way that you didn't before. I think that most of us, in the world today, we're kind of sensitive to selfishness and ugliness and evil of various kinds, and we feel oppressed by it or depressed by it, because I think that's the way the world is, that's the way people are. And some people say, you should just try and be positive, look on the bright side of life, but it feels kind of artificial and it doesn't really stand up very well to experience. But when we start to look more clearly at our life and the experiences, the people around us, we sense so much more goodness and kindness than we ever thought before. And we find in ourselves that things that formerly couldn't believe that we could enjoy, things that would give us pleasure, like getting up early in the morning or meditating or chanting, or even mindful activities like sweeping and cleaning. When we bring the right quality of mind to them, we can find unexpected pleasure and joy in all kinds of activities. So as a general observation, I would say if you're practicing well, things that make you unhappy should be decreasing, and things that make you happy should be increasing. Now, part of this increased focus and sensitivity to what's going on in the real world of your body and mind, rather than in your fantasies and desires and fears and anxieties, but what's really going on. What you're looking at essentially is causality, seeing the way things affect each other, the way your physical health, your physical state of your body affects your mental states, the way your mental states affect your body, the way your actions and speech affect your mind, the way your mind affects your actions and speech. So you're gaining all this data, like raw data about what's really going on in your life. And from that, a really strong, much stronger faith in the law of karma and causality, as the Buddha taught it, arises through that observation. So, if we speak harshly or unkindly or do something which unnecessarily hurts other people, before we started meditating, then tendency is to try and interpret it, spin it in such a way that you come out okay and it was really not too blameworthy, or else you try to suppress the memory of the shame or the guilt you feel by alcohol or drugs or some kind of enjoyment, some kind of activity, and you really fail to see the cause and effect. And but when you start looking more closely, in my mindfulness, you see, yeah, when I act like this, these are the consequences. It's not worth it. And when I act like this, I just feel so bad afterwards. I feel ashamed. It's something not to do, not to follow. So what we call hiri-ottappa, this wise understanding of consequences of actions, and this sense of shame, which is not guilt, but it's a shame about action rather than about yourself and who you are. This should be becoming more and more strong and apparent. As a consequence of this, you should find that keeping precepts just comes to seem common sense, seems so obvious that if you really wish for your life to be free of suffering and to progress in Dhamma, then these 5 precepts are non-negotiable, and not because the Buddha says you should keep 5 precepts or something like that, but you really understand how the role they play in practice and in leading a good and productive life. One other thing is just basically that ability to stay with the practice. I mean, the only real failure in practice is stopping. All the other failures and mistakes and wrong turns that you take, they're all they can all be remedied. The only thing that can't be remedied is giving up altogether. So that kind of patience and commitment, and most importantly, enjoyment, appreciation of Dhamma practice. These are the signs that some progress is being made.